Hello, welcome everybody. Thank you for coming along to our seminar on how science organisations can work better together and with industry to help future potato production. Just a quick reminder that for every seminar that you attend, you can secure yourself additional basis points if you go out and re-register, even if you've already registered. They're just outside to the left. So just a very brief introduction from myself. I'm Sophie Bambridge. We grow seed and wear potatoes in Norfolk, B&C Farming, and I also chair the CUPGRA Exec Committee, and I'm on the GB Potatoes Board. So I'm here representing industry, and I will chair the events. We'll have presentations from our 4 speakers, who I'll introduce one by one, and then we'll have an opportunity for questions at the end of the session, and we really invite good discussion, please. So just to say that scientific research is a really important part of our industry, and combined with the role of agronomists who help translate that research and they can help bring innovation into production. It's really important, therefore, that these researchers and agronomists work together whenever possible to ensure that we maximise the output from a relatively small research landscape and deliver a consistent message. So our panel will hopefully demonstrate today good examples of really good positive collaboration, and also how we might better collaborate in the future as well. And it's a particularly important time because we really need to innovate to keep the industry successful and relevant. So first of all, we have Toth, who's the director of the National Potato Innovation Centre and also of the Plant Health Centre at James Hutton. So I'll invite Ian to present first. Thank you.
Thanks, Sophie. Thank you. So thanks all for coming. I'm going to talk about something called the National Potato Innovation Centre. Before I forget, I've put some leaflets at the back on the chair in the corner. If you're interested to read a little bit more, and it's got my contact details, please feel free to just take a leaflet on your way out and contact me anytime. It's quite a grand title to be the director of a centre that doesn't yet exist, because we're still going for the money to try and get it to exist. But at the James Hutton Institute, which is in Dundee in Scotland, for those that don't know it, we're actually not doing too badly in terms of trying to get a cluster of science industry collaboration there. And there's something called the International Barley Hub and the Advanced Plant Growth Centre, where we managed to raise about 60-something million pounds to actually get these underway, and these are being built and due to be finished in summer next year. So we're really hoping that we can do the same for potato and really start to innovate in potato and bring industry and academics together to do that. For those of you that don't know who we are, the James Hutton Institute develops new crops and production systems that help deliver food security and protect the environment. Excuse me, I'm reading it down here, so it's not that I'm not interested in you guys. And secondly, to protect and enhance ecosystem resilience. So crops are very important, and potatoes are a particular important crop to us. We have a strong science team at the Hutton, probably the biggest in the UK. We also have some very good form when it comes to producing commercial varieties. And all in all, this makes us the biggest potato research and breeding organisation in Europe. But we're not the only one. And it's really important to note that there are other very good research organisations around the UK working on potato. And you can see from the map, the yellow dots are just some examples of the groups working on potato. And the green behind it is showing where potato production in the UK is. And you can see that there's a very clear correlation between the research and where potatoes are produced. And that's not a coincidence. So we're looking at trying to coalesce the academic organisations to really work together more for the good of industry. We have lots of good collaborations already, but they tend to be, for example, individual areas, individual researchers. We want to do this really on an organisational level so that we can coordinate our science. And it's really important to say that the new Potato Centre isn't just about the James Hutton Institute, it's about all of us working together. It just happens to be there, and that's a really important message. Not only that, but industry are also involved, all aspects of industry with an involvement in potato, and we want that to come together. And for example, we will have a chairperson for this centre who will be from industry or associated with industry. We'll have an advisory group that will be very heavily skewed towards industry to make sure that the science that we do is both informed by industry and gets back to industry. So that's really important. It's not just UK, we're also looking at how to do this internationally. We already have good links with the International Potato Centre, or CIP, although CIP's more focused on development rather than the NPIC, which is focused more on commercial production. In the last few months, we've also started an organisation called the International Potato Partnership, which has countries like Australia, New Zealand, South Africa, we hope soon Canada, Germany, Ireland, all working together for how we can maximise science for the good of industry. So there's no point in somebody in Australia doing an experiment and somebody in the UK doing an experiment on the same thing without knowing what each other's doing and without maximising the outputs of that. So it's a way of working better together. And we hope that NPIC is going to be some sort of forum where this will help to make sure this happens. So the idea is that NPIC will be based in Dundee with these national and international partners, both academic and industry, so that we can generate a creative cluster. I can't read my thing from that. Looking at new varieties, and I'll come on to that, management systems, innovative products, and high-skilled jobs, and I hope in new industries. First one is discovery and breeding. What we'd like to do is look to discover new genes that can go through into breeding, and I'll explain how we might do that in a second. New breeding technologies are really coming through quickly, but in the UK, we're not doing that much of it, and we really want to make sure that within the centre that we're maximising opportunities around that. That might include genome editing, but it certainly isn't only genome editing. We need to talk to industry about priorities, but we suspect that things like drought, temperature, disease stresses, quality, nutrient use, efficiency, and I'll talk about new products, will be things that we'll be looking at. And in terms of varieties, we really can't afford to wait 20 years for new varieties coming through with new pests and diseases, loss of pesticides and climate change happening before our eyes. We really need to be much quicker off the mark, and these new technologies, we hope, will help with that. So in terms of gene discovery, we have something at the Institute called the Commonwealth Potato Collection, or CPC, which is a collection of about 1,500 different types of potato and 80 species. And when you consider that almost all commercial potato at the moment is a single species, Solanum tuberosum, we have 80 times that genetic variation. This is something like half of all potato species in the world we have in this collection at the Hutton. So how can we make better use of that? And there are examples of how we're doing that. We also want to, who wouldn't want to look at resilient production systems, using precision agriculture, improved water and fertilizer use efficiency, reduced carbon, better waste management and circular economy, which I want to talk about more, pest and disease control, and the use of artificial intelligence and modelling. And artificial intelligence is something that we really have to engage with and could be incredibly useful to us. I want to give you one example, and I know that Jim Wilson's here today. Jim Wilson's the Managing Director of Soil Essentials up in Scotland, and we're working with him to develop new software that can recognise volunteers or groundkeepers in fields of different crops. So the software has been trained to recognise potato plants, We have on this tractor, you can see the shadow of the tractor at the front of the bottom of the screen. We have a tractor that monitors the plants. The software recognises the presence of the volunteer potato, and then as the spray boom goes over, it just sprays that particular plant, and according to Jim, can make a saving of about 95% of the chemicals that we're applying. He's not the first to do it. There are other people doing it, but within the UK, how can we get together to really make sure this is a big success? And in terms of saving pesticides and herbicides, it's absolutely huge. Final area is innovative potato products. We're interested in looking at things like bioactives for medicines and cosmetics, and I'll give you an example of that. Plant factories, where you can actually engineer plants to produce proteins that can be used for vaccine development. Starch for plastics, and functional foods for proteins. And I see that the director of Beehive is here today, and I've been speaking to them, and I know that Beehive and Branston together are doing some fantastic work in setting up a factory to look at exploiting waste potato in terms of protein extraction. I think this is fantastic, and I also think it's just the start of what we can do. So I want to give you one example of a molecule that's been identified in potato. It's called solanosol. Solanosol is a precursor to something called coenzyme Q10, which is used in things like face creams, but also different medicines. And you'll know if you look at a face cream that it says contains Q and contains 10 and all this stuff. Well, there's some science behind that. And this is a market, as is the protein, as is the starch, worth many billions worldwide. Currently, solanosol is produced from waste tobacco, and it's about 1.7% of the weight of a tobacco leaf. The issue is that there are problems with production and cost of this. So some of the scientists at Hutton have been looking at the potential to use potato, which is actually very closely related to tobacco. And not only have they found it in there, but in some cultivars, they've found twice the level, up to 3% solanosol in these plants. And given that potato is a much bigger crop than tobacco, and we waste 40%, some growers might disagree that we completely waste it, the haulm, 40% the green part, how can we use it better? Currently, we churn back into the field about 2 million tonnes of haulm. Can we take it, extract valuable commodities from it, and then maybe even put it back onto the field after that? So I think there's a lot more we can do. In terms of food security in the UK, we've seen from a talk yesterday that the level of food security is going down. It used to be 100%, then 90%. It's now about 65%. How can we innovate to make sure that that doesn't keep falling? And maybe to give growers a new revenue source in some of these products is a possibility. Okay, so just to finish, this is not just about the science, it's about what industry thinks we should be doing and then how to feed back to industry after. So we have 3 events coming up in February, one in Dundee on the 5th of February, one in York on the 12th, and one in Cambridge on the 19th, where we're going to be engaging, we hope to be engaging with you from industry and government to really start to tell us what you think we should be doing and where we should be setting our priorities. And the final thing is that on stand 189, just over there, we have a pledge board, and the more people that sign this pledge board with your name and your affiliation, we're not going to come looking for money just because you've signed a card. The more people that do it, the more we can say to our funders, look, people are interested in this, we really need to move ahead with it. So please do take time to come and sign the board. And that's it. Thank you.
Thank you, Ian. I'd now like to invite Faye Richie, who's the Associate Managing Director of ADAS. Thank you.
Good morning, everyone. So what I wanted to talk to you about today is crop storage and post-harvest solutions. And this was very much an initiative that was led by CHAP, who did industry consultation and seek the funding to ensure that we still had potato research facilities here in the UK. So the facilities are managed by CHAP and in partnership with ourselves, ADAS, the University of Greenwich through their Natural Resources Institute, and the James Hutton Institute. So this just gives you, the photographs there show you some of the facilities we have. So the top photographs are the stores that we have at ADAS. We've got 3 6-ton stores. The James Hutton Institute, they've got 6 4-ton stores, and half of those were funded by the Scottish Government. And at the Natural Resources Institute, they've got a range of their own facilities and growth cabinets and chambers, but they also have these pea pods which can be put into commercial stores in order to do research there. This is very much about raising awareness of the facility. It's relatively new, and the people involved are all working together to develop new projects. But it's not just about us, it's about discussing ideas with the industry and using these facilities in order to help that happen. So the sorts of examples are just down there. So things like development and testing of sprout suppression strategies. We've got the capacity for hot fogging, for example, and also supply chain and monitoring. So what's the impact on fresh produce, on transport times, things like that. And also, as a plant pathologist, I'm very interested in disease development and storage as well. So it's really just to give you an overview of the facility. I've put the details at the bottom there about CHAP's website, so you can go and have a read a bit more about those facilities.
Just musical chairs here. Now I'd like to invite Peter Craven, who is Potato Research Manager at NIAB, working with CUPGRA as well.
Thanks, Sophie. Have I got a slide? I've put a crazy slide up just to show you, not expecting you to read that slide. So my name is Peter Craven. My potato credentials are I was born into a potato growing family in South Lincolnshire. Did that for 20 years, and I'm on the NFU Potato Policy Group. But last year, NIAB asked me if I'd go and talk to them about life after HDB and net zero, both things that we've been discussing with the NFU. And I joined NIAB as their managing development of potato research. So I've been in that role for just over a year. It is a new role. I'm not making it up as I go along, but there's a bit of scope for that. I'm here. Ian's asked me if I'd just talk to you about a couple of things. One of them being the GB-PCN forum, and the other the student network. So as part of my role at NIAB, I also help administer CUPGRA, of which Sophie is as chair, and as part of something we did earlier in the year, we brought everybody together in the world of PCN at NIAB in Cambridge to have a discussion. So that was academics, it was agronomists, growers, supermarkets, chemical manufacturers, get them all in one room, Scotland as well, and PCN Action Scotland, to discuss the problem that we've got coming down the road. And out of that has been born the GB-PCN forum, of which we had a whole load of problems that we discussed on this page, and that's really one day's work with some of the brightest minds in PCN, and it just highlights that the challenge is quite complex, and we need some joined up thinking. We've been incredibly welcomed by PCN Action Scotland, and James Price and Ian have been. I was there a month ago where they were sharing the updates of where they're getting to, and only by working together. Nobody's got a monopoly on good ideas, and so bringing people together is definitely the way forward. Also, just to touch on something that CUPGRA is trying to do, which we're facilitating, which is bringing potato PhD people together. So the potato world, it's not that big, but there's lots of people working in different areas with similar problems that if we can only bring them together to help share. So we've created a hub, a kind of a hive that people can come together and share information, and whether that's working on sharing papers, ideas, methodologies, but really trying to create a community for students working in the world of potatoes to try and help. So there are a couple of things going on. We cannot afford to do duplication in research. We were meeting on the stand at CUPGRA yesterday. We had the equivalent of what I would say CUF, if in Wageningen. We're doing work in Cambridge. There's work going on in Scotland. There's work going on in Wageningen. We're probably all doing the same thing. And if only we got together, we could coordinate that better. So there's got to be this idea of bringing people together, and NPIC is something that certainly we're very much supportive of, and we will be seeing you on the 19th of February in Cambridge. So I was told not to say too much, so I think I've probably said enough. Thank you.
Thank you, Peter. And last but not least, we have Susannah Bolton, who covers commercial research and education at SRUC, bringing them together.
Thank you very much, Sophie. Yes, good to see everybody here. And it's really good to hear about the future investments in potato research and the potential for future investments in potato research. But the reality is that the funding that is available for potato research compared to the funding available, for example, for arable crops more generally, is really tiny. We have to absolutely make the most of the funding that is available to ensure that we are generating genuine impact, genuine change, and real potential for growers of potatoes, growers and processors of potatoes. So just to recap, I'm Susannah Bolton. I'm Vice Principal for Enterprise and Knowledge Exchange at SRUC. I've been working with SRUC for around 18 months, and I have to say it feels like a huge honour and privilege to be part of an organisation that is able to combine within itself research, education, and a really powerful, strong consulting and agronomy arm. SRUC is based over 6 campuses in Scotland, so incredibly widely dispersed in Scotland. We also have 25 consulting offices distributed again across Scotland and England, and around 220 consultants in the commercial team. So it's a really powerful force that is able to integrate with the research programs in a really interesting and dynamic way. But just to come back to this challenge that we face of the way in which we can really effectively take the outputs from science, the research investment that we know is happening, albeit at a small level, and convert that into genuine, valuable, useful knowledge, useful products, useful tools for farmers, growers, and processors. The trick to that is the integration that we've heard about already. The trick to that is ensuring that actually this thing that we've heard about that might be called the valley of death doesn't happen. We know that there are vast sums of money invested in fundamental research that maybe doesn't reach the end user. But I'd actually like to use as my examples a couple of examples where actually the valley of death has been bridged, where actually we can learn from the fact that agronomists, that actually farmers themselves, have actually been involved right from the start in the way in which that knowledge is then disseminated and distributed to the end user. A great example that actually goes all the way back to very fundamental research that has happened at Rothamsted, at the James Hutton Institute and elsewhere, is how we actually deal with fungicide resistance It's an incredibly complex subject. It actually, the fundamental science is based on the evolution of very complex organisms, co-evolution happening. But actually, because the industry, the ag chem companies, because science, because agronomists, and because people involved in managing resistance have come together in a really effective way. We have the Fungicide Resistance Action Group. We have agronomists on the ground who are tapping into the new understanding of resistance as it evolves in order to provide the best available information, whether that be the resistance in potato blight or whether it be resistance in septoria in cereals. Another great example that I'm delighted that Peter mentioned is the PCN Action Scotland, where Scottish Agronomy, James Hutton Institute, SASA and others have come together with SRUC to create a genuine collaboration, which actually has, again, at its heart, an understanding of what is feasible in practice in farm businesses. And what I'd like to say is that the potential contribution of agronomists in research programs right from the beginning is absolutely huge, because it will ensure that those research questions, the research targets, are right from the very beginning. So I'm going to stop there. I think that's probably my time, and I think we've got some time for questions as well. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you, Susannah. Right now it's question time. Oops, dropped my pen. We've talked a lot about bringing research together and connecting with industry, and just to ensure everyone's awake after no doubt they had a couple of beers last night. Who here, show of hands please, is from industry? Growers, packers, processors? So that's 5, I think. Yeah. And who here is from research? Yeah, if you wear multiple hats, you can put your hands up again, but I might get confused with my counting. You know, it's not a democracy here. And who's an agronomist? And anybody else? What did I not include? Training? Yes. Anything else? Okay. Well, anyway, what that shows is actually we have quite a nice blend of the whole sector, which is really interesting. So, in case there aren't any questions immediately forthcoming from the audience, I was going to ask just a couple of really brief ones. First of all, Ian, the stakeholder meetings. How do people go about registering for attendance, or is it an open invite?
Does this work?
Yes.
It's a very good question. I'm nervous on 2 counts. One, that nobody's going to show up, and secondly, that lots of people are going to show up. So I think we're expecting, we've catered for about 40, possibly 50 people at each one. Doesn't matter if there's less, but it probably does matter if there's more. And so what we want to do at the moment, we're going to write to people on a certain list to make sure that we cover all bases in terms of different types of sectors, just like you've done now. And if there are spaces left, then we will put it out and say there's a certain number of seats left. Mm-hmm. If somebody's particularly keen to engage, they can come and talk to me. And there's no reason that people shouldn't be on the list. It's just that we have to start somewhere. So just come and talk to me if you want to come along. Okay, that's great. Thank you. Yes, please.
One question you didn't say is, do we have people who are funders here? Mm-hmm. And one of the big challenges, I think it's fantastic to come together, but also the funding mechanisms that we have are competitive, which is how we've been in our industry for decades now. Don't you think some of this collaboration and sharing of research needs to be driven a little bit by the funders as well, about what they're asking for, but also the outcome from the funding that they've already provided?
I'll say something. So I completely agree. And I'm actually part of something called the Bacterial Plant Diseases Programme, which is a big multi-agency funding, BBSRC, DEFRA, Scottish Government and NIAB, I think. And it's fantastic because they've put £18 million into research, and it's about 9 projects, I think. So they're big projects. And they have looked at how they can make sure that these organisations, these teams work together. And so they have regular meetings together. There's a comms team that works for the good of the group. And it's amazing how when you have some structure holding projects together, how we work together. And we've gone on to generate new projects based on partnerships between people from these different groups. And it works fantastically. So funders have got an absolutely vital part in that, I agree.
Susannah?
Thanks, Rosie, for a really good question, because, and I think it's another strong case, and perhaps the most compelling case, for us to be working together as an industry, and for the voice to be a really collective voice, not just researchers saying we need more money, because the response is, well, that's what you would say anyway. But actually the value of our supply chain, the value of our businesses that are operating in our sector also making the case alongside us, so that there is a really strong collective voice is so important. And I think, that if we can demonstrate that by a shared commitment to NPIC, I think that would be a fantastic way of demonstrating that. So, and really demonstrating the fact that this is about research and industry coming together, not just research shouting for its own case.
I think that's a very good point. We can multiply considerably research funds available by industry very obviously being involved, but we've got to have the right mechanisms to do that. So I think you had a question?
Yeah, just one for Ian, really. Is this on? In past decades, research organisations and researchers have been somewhat competitive with each other. So do you have a plan that researchers and research organisations get their recognition rather than, the desire to put a James Hutton sticker on all of someone else's research?
Yeah, that's it. Sorry, I'm struggling today. That's a nice question. I can't emphasise enough that this is not about the James Hutton Institute. This is about a facility that will have a physical structure within the grounds of James Hutton Institute, but it's not about James Hutton. It's about all the different organisations working together. And for example, the idea is that, people that live in the south might not want to move up and spend the rest of their career in this facility, but the idea is that both industry and academics will be able to come up, maybe stay for a week or a month or 3 months or whatever, and work in those facilities and take skills back and bring skills to it. So it's going to be make it really dynamic. And in terms of competition, we are in competition. We always are. We've had some very good conversations with the Holland Innovative Potato Initiative in Wageningen, and they're really keen to work with us as well. They've got their own areas. Actually, they're not so different to what we want to do. And you can do things on your own, but there's also a time when you need to do it together. And if we can write joint grants, a little bit like the example I just gave, if we can do that together, then we all get the research money that we do need to survive, but for the good of the industry. And from my point of view, as the director of this new centre, when it starts, is to use research to benefit industry. That's what it's all about.
Great, thank you.
Thank you. Any more questions from the floor? That's fine. I have a few I made earlier. So we've talked about the real importance of research and industry, and that's the broad potato industry coming together in order to be able to secure and enhance funding opportunities, but also to ensure that you're not researching something which is irrelevant to industry, and industry is using the research that is being worked on. I wonder how you think the best way to bring industry and research together is, whether we have any of the right vehicles at the moment, or whether we need to have more or evolve, or so. To the panel, please. Thank you, Susannah.
We had an interesting conversation earlier this morning on the SRUC stand, where we were talking about how important this knowledge exchange element of any really genuinely industry-targeted research has to be. And I think it was Kieran commented, Kieran Maloney, who's in the audience here, said the trouble is that knowledge exchange in research programs is very often seen as an add-on, and actually genuinely good knowledge exchange, where you're genuinely involving those people who need to be part of that understanding of how something needs to be implemented, the sorts of behaviours that might need to be changed, the sorts of market challenges you might face, or the regulatory environment. To do that really well is actually quite costly because it involves a lot of people. And the knowledge exchange element of our research programmes is rarely funded in any way as well as it needs to be. So I do think that's another message that we need to ensure is communicated well to research funders. That actually, if we really want to make an impact with our research, we also have to be prepared to pay for the involvement and engagement of those players in genuine knowledge exchange programs.
Thank you. Anybody else?
I would only just say we've got to build trust between these organisations, and only by working closer together do we understand each other better, and sort of creating an environment of honesty, openness and fairness between each other to build that trust. But you're right, it is competitive and it's difficult when it's competitive. So joint writing of funding applications has got to be the way forward, rather than everybody pitching against each other, because we're all trying to get to the same end goal in a lot of cases. So there's certainly room for improvement.
Thank you.
I've got another question, actually. Working with industry over the last... Thank you. Yeah, another question. Working with science and industry over the last couple of decades or whatever, we've got some really good relations with some agronomists and growers, and we get really, really good ideas from them. But I'm always very aware, when we walk around these rooms, there's a whole heap of people that we've never really engaged with. And I was just wondering if you had any ideas or plans for how to engage with wider industry. I think you mentioned, Ian, about having a list of people that will instantly dial. But how do we gather the ideas? Because that's maybe where the spark is that we need, to kind of move things on.
Can I say something?
Yes, please.
So I was saying that, some industry people do engage more than others, and I think making sure that we make the most of their contact is really important, because they speak to other people. Even if we don't see them, the word gets round, and we speak to other people. The idea of MPIC is that, I think I said that the person overseeing it, the chair of MPIC, will be an industry person. And we would hope to choose somebody that has a wide knowledge of the industry and knows a lot of people. Coming to events like this, I think this event's been fantastic, because I've met so many people that I didn't know before. And you realise that everybody's got a common interest in making things better for the potato industry. So I think just getting out and meeting people, making sure they're involved in projects, Susannah's absolutely right, making sure people are involved in projects. It's not easy to get those involved that don't want to get involved or don't have time to get involved. But you kind of hope it seeps through to them. And even if they're not involved, hopefully some of the innovations coming from science through agronomy to industry will flow through to them. That's what we have to hope, anyway. I
think that's a very good point. That the word agronomists, they are like the foot soldiers, conveying the research out. But I agree, it's wonderful that they can do that. But it's really important that growers of all sizes and sectors get involved. I would also say that you have several trade and industry bodies like the PPA, the FPSA, the BPTA, GB Potatoes, CUPGRA, organisations like this who have a representation of a lot of growers as well. Any more questions from the...
So can I just say on the back of that same point, already with the National Virus Forum and this GB PCN Forum, it's an inclusive, not exclusive, and very much so. And so bringing people together from all across industry, that's growers, agronomists, it's everyone, bringing everyone and giving everyone a voice has been brilliant. So I'm new to this, but certainly watching how the Virus Forum works and now setting up this GB PCN in a similar vein is a great step forward and is a good demonstration of industry working together and science into practice, if you like.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. Probably got time for just one more question. I just wanted to follow up with Faye and ask, what is the vision for crop storage and post-harvest solutions facilities in ADAS? And I wonder as well, because I know there's a CIPC stewardship group looking to be formed and things like that. So there are things happening. So what's the vision, and how can we then ensure that there's integration between other things which have sort of been born post-Sutton Bridge?
Thanks, Sophie. Yes, that's a good question, and it's about us all working together. I mean, the crop storage and the post-harvest solutions group meet regularly. We've been talking to a lot of people in the industry. There's lots of great ideas. It's not just about us. We involve SRUC, other organisations. We're speaking to companies. So it's really important that we understand what else is going on, like you say, the CIPC initiative, and also what's going on. We're very much a research size facility, but what's going on, for example, with the spot stores,
yes,
and things like that. So that's sort of where I see we need to be, and we need to be engaging it with those people.
Yes, thank you. We do have a couple more minutes if there is anything else anybody would like to ask the panel. If you're shy, you can, as Ian said, you can put a pledge to him. Probably something to do with potato research, nothing about your love for Ian or anything like that, don't worry.
There are not many people that do that.
So, yeah, thank you. Yes, thank you.
Is that they're fairly soon, there's a big, fairly wide-scale economics report coming out, and that is because historically we've undervalued the potato industry compared to other crops. And so when that comes out, we will have a whole new set of numbers and values for our industry that we can then take forward for funders and say, look, how much this is worth, and if you don't keep investing in it, how much the economy is about to lose. So that's imminent. That's Stephen Thompson from SRUC that's heading that. So it's just to be aware that that's coming, and we can probably use that for some good.
That's helpful. Thank you very much.
Can I just add to that?
Yes.
So that's a really good point. And we always talk about farm gate values for potato. The farm gate value for potato in GB's somewhere around £700 million. But when you look at the true value of potato, when crops that have been grown in the UK go out to be processed, come back and people buy them, and the cost of machinery and the cost to the economy and the chemicals that we use and the cost of everything related to potato, it's much more like 3 or 4 billion. So we talk about quite small numbers where we should be talking about the true cost, which is much, much higher. And I think this report, which is excellent, I've seen a draft, it's an excellent report, and we really have to start changing the way we talk about stuff. If you were working on barley, you'd be talking about a £4 billion whisky industry that makes 700 million look tiny, and it's not, it's worth the same. We just don't sell it very well. So hopefully this report's going to help us to do that better.
Thank you. And we would absolutely invite anybody to engage with any of the speakers or any of the organisations that any of us are involved with, if anybody's interested in doing anything or pursuing these conversations. So thank you for your time and enjoy the rest of the show. Thank you to the speakers, of course.